The brutality of Mexican cartels is beyond belief, with methods so horrific they seem almost unreal. How far can terror go when life is treated as disposable? Victims are boiled alive in acid, dismembered in front of loved ones, or torn apart by tigers, acts meant to instill fear more than death. Could you imagine being skinned alive while still conscious? Well, here are Mexican cartels' most brutal torture methods. 10th, dismemberment.
¿Cómo te llamas? Eso es. ¿Cómo te dicen? Vamos. ¿De dónde eres? ¿Para quién trabajas?
Prosecutors say Vasquez was the director of huge shipments of drugs across the border as a Zeta boss in Piedras Negras. However, Vasquez's attorney says it was the prosecution's witness statement about a 6-year-old girl who was mutilated and eventually killed in front of her parents that turned the jury.
Oscar Omar Trevino Morales, or Z42, picked up the leadership. This is when the most brutal chapter of this cartel began.
Miguel Angel Trevino wasn't even a household name. He'd only been running the infamous Los Zetas since October.
The horror of cartel violence goes far beyond anything most people could even think of. Cartels often use dismemberment as a method of torture. The goal isn't just to kill, but to make the victims suffer as much as possible and force them to give up information. In one brutal case from 2013, a cartel member, Marciano Chano Milan Vasquez, forced a couple to watch as he chopped their daughter apart with an axe near a flaming barrel. But that's not even the worst part. Cartels use drugs like morphine or adrenaline to keep their victims awake and aware during this torture. This way, the person feels every single second of the pain as limbs are hacked off, all while avoiding vital organs to drag out the suffering. Shock, blood loss, and infections only add to the agony. The dismemberment is also used to dispose of bodies, sending a horrifying message to anyone who dares to cross the cartel. 9. Cartel kitchens.
What you saw was a change in the way drug cartels fought with violence. It was no longer those gang members with shaved heads and tattoos fighting with pistols and knives. It was militarized style, fighting like military units. And once they did it, this was spread across to every cartel in Mexico.
2011, Los Zetas kidnapped 139 migrants and took them to their ranch in San Fernando, where they tortured and took their lives.
And then there's what's known as cartel kitchens, which are secret locations where torture and death happen. These aren't kitchens for food. They are places of unimaginable brutality. In Veracruz, Mexico, Los Zetas turned a ranch into a place of terror, where victims were dragged, tortured, and then burned. The authorities have ignored the scale of this horror for years. Investigators uncovered bones, femurs, and pelvises buried in the dirt, showing the sheer number of people who disappeared there. Since 2006, over 60,000 people have gone missing in Mexico, many likely victims of these horrific operations. The way these places are set up is designed for maximum pain, and it's clear the authorities haven't done enough to stop it. 8. Flaying.
Guzman Loera, better known as El Chapo, broke out of his cell by crawling through a hole in the shower.
The escape of Chapo Guzman.
The video, which lasts just over 6 minutes, shows a member of La Linea being brutally flayed alive by CDN sicarios. This is not a simple execution. This is an act of terror, an attempt to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. The execution is chilling in its precision, planned, deliberate, and executed with terrifying calm.
When it comes to cartel violence, there's almost nothing more horrifying than flaying, the act of ripping skin off a living person. Cartels use this method on rivals, traitors, and thieves to send a terrifying message. One of the worst cases surfaced in 2018 near Costa Grande, Mexico. A horrifying video leaked online showed a father and son tied up and forced to kneel. The father was beaten bloody with a stick and then slowly beheaded with a small knife right in front of his son. What's worse, the boy wasn't killed quickly. Instead, cartel members cut and peeled the skin off his chest while he was still alive, slipping in and out of consciousness but never allowed real mercy. The sheer evil left people across Mexico in shock. But this wasn't the only nightmare. Back in 2010, El Chapo himself was linked to a case where he ordered a rival's skin to be peeled off using a chainsaw. Pieces of that man's body were later found scattered across a city, stitched together grotesquely as a warning. Doctors say that when someone is flayed alive, death doesn't come quickly. Victims die slowly from blood loss, infection, or even hypothermia, sometimes suffering for hours or even days. It's almost too horrifying to believe, but it's real. And it's how these cartels keep people living in terror. 7. Human life turned into animal food.
Have you ever fed any of your enemies to tigers?
No. Soy un narcotraficante al cristal, perico y al fentanil. ¿Solo hace una 38 Beretta? Pues tengo 3 novias, una esposa.
Images of his corpse killed. Other names are like El Lazca, El Verdugo, Z3. He was in the army, enlisted in the Mexican army, and rose to the ranks of the Grupo Aeromóvil de Fuerzas Especiales, which are the Mexican Army Special Forces.
As if torture wasn't enough, some cartel bosses went even further. In the twisted world of cartel cruelty, exotic animals like tigers and lions became tools of murder. Inspired by Colombian drug lords, Mexican leaders like Heriberto Lascano used big cats not just as pets, but as executioners. Lascano, who once served in Mexico's special forces, later became one of Los Zetas' most feared leaders. He didn't just beat victims to death, he starved his lions and tigers so they'd be hungry enough to attack human flesh on command. Victims were shoved into cages, sometimes while others watched, and then torn apart alive. Lascano was known for brutal torture methods even before bringing in animals. In one chilling case, he tied a man to a tree, shattered his legs with a board, and left him suffering for days until he finally died. Even though Lascano was killed in a shootout in 2012, his nightmarish methods still echo through cartel violence today. Knowing that people were fed alive to wild animals just shows the horrifying depths of cruelty these organizations are willing to sink to. Wait, do you feel sacred with these? Well, the torture method at number 1 will give you a scary chill, nightmare, and a near-death experience in your brain. 5. Psychological warfare.
Maria Santos Gorostieta had already survived 2 assassination attempts, but 2 weeks ago, she was ambushed and abducted while driving with her daughter. Her body was found days later.
The first assassination attempt came in October of 2009, when the car that she was traveling in with her first husband, Jose Sanchez, came under fire from gunmen in the town of El Lemoyne. The attack claimed his life, but Gorostieta lived.
Cartels don't always rush to kill their victims. Sometimes what they really want is to shatter a person's mind before ending their life. In fact, many cartels treat psychological torture as more important than getting information. Their goal isn't to get secrets, it's to terrorize everyone who hears about it. Victims are often locked away for days or even weeks, trapped inside small, dark rooms with barely any food or water. Some are forced to sit alone in silence, while others are bombarded with loud, terrifying sounds like screams, gunshots, and metal banging at random hours. Mock executions are common. Victims are blindfolded, made to believe they are about to die, and then left alive just to keep the fear fresh. Then comes the slow mutilation, cutting off one finger today, maybe another one tomorrow. One of the most horrifying cases happened in 2012 when Maria Santos Gorostieta Salazar, a brave former mayor who had already survived previous cartel attacks, was kidnapped by the Knights Templar cartel. They forced her to watch her husband burned alive with a blowtorch. Then they cut his body into pieces, making sure she saw every second of it. After that, they tortured and killed her too. Her autopsy showed she died from a brutal head injury. And the worst part? Cartels want these stories to spread. 6. Beheading by chainsaw.
He kind of just, he felt the pain, and you can kind of see it in his face expression that he was in really bad pain. The blood was everywhere, it was spraying, and The second attempt to try to cut him, he falls. That was the fatal blow, and he falls right onto the shoulder of his nephew. His nephew's not even looking. He's just looking straight at to the camera.
When chainsaws are involved, things reach a whole different level of horror. In cartel killings, beheading someone isn't just about killing them. It's about sending a gruesome message that nobody can ignore. Chainsaws make the process fast, loud, and unbelievably brutal, making sure that the terror sticks in people's minds forever. In 2011, a video shook Mexico to its core. It showed two men, Felix Games Garcia and his uncle Barnabas Games, tied up and kneeling. 1 second, they were there. The next, a cartel hitman pressed a roaring chainsaw against their necks. Blood sprayed everywhere. They were executed for stealing drugs, but their deaths were meant as a warning to anyone even thinking about disobedience. The video was uploaded online, where thousands of people saw it, a tactic cartels still use today. In another case from 2008, a man named Moses Esquivel May was arrested after allegedly beheading 12 people in Yucatan. And the horror didn't stop at individuals. In 2011, 5 rotting human heads were found stuffed inside a sack near a school in Acapulco, terrifying parents and causing schools to shut down. In 2022, an ice cooler was found in Tamaulipas. Inside were 5 severed heads. In some parts of Mexico, cartels have even blended old ritualistic beliefs into these killings, thinking that offering up severed heads somehow brings them spiritual power. Séptimo Tehuacanazo.
They make billions of dollars smuggling drugs and illicit goods across the border into the United States, and many of their leaders are wanted across the border. But who are the powerful Mexican drug cartel?
One of the most horrifying cartel torture methods is called the Tehuacanazo. It might sound harmless because it uses water, but it's pure agony. Instead of water, cartels pour carbonated soda mixed with chili pepper over a wet cloth, covering the victim's face. Every breath burns the lungs, making them feel like they're drowning in acid. Victims thrash and choke as cartel members pour, stop, and pour again, dragging out the suffering. This brutal method came to light during El Chapo's 2019 trial, showing just how far cartels go to create fear. Rooted in medieval torture, the Tehuacanazo today is even more terrifying and deadly. Cannibalism.
65 pounds, brown eyes, brown hair. Wait a minute, is that me? Narco balladeers have celebrated his rumoured love of fast motorbikes and $100,000 cockfights, but otherwise he's a cipher. Over 25 years of working in Mexico, you'd run into guys who had met Chapo who would talk about him.
One of the sickest things happening inside cartels is forced cannibalism. It's not just violence anymore. It's about breaking a person's mind completely. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, led by the ruthless El Mencho, uses this horrifying method to train their new recruits. First, they make them eat severed fingers and toes. If that's not horrifying enough, the training then moves on to larger parts of the body. Anyone who vomits is forced to eat their own puke mixed with human remains. And as if that wasn't enough, recruits are made to sleep next to dead bodies, day after day, until their sense of right and wrong is completely destroyed. This isn't about strength. It's about wiping out a recruit's humanity. Miguel Trevino Morales, the infamous Z40 from Los Zetas, even ate human hearts, believing it gave him supernatural power. Hanging. Public hangings are another brutal tool cartels use to scare entire cities into silence. Bodies aren't just dumped. They're hung from bridges and highway overpasses like some sick public warning. In 2016, a man's body was found swinging from a Tijuana bridge, just a short drive from the US border. In 2021, 9 bodies were left dangling from a bridge in Zacatecas, a gruesome answer to the discovery of 14 mutilated corpses nearby. These displays aren't random acts of madness. They are cold, calculated messages. This territory belongs to us. Cross us, And this will be you. Victims are often beaten, mutilated, and then displayed with handwritten signs full of threats. Décimo, el guiso, the stew.
Irme arriba y abajo ya se puede romper eso y es esa consistente que parece como arena. This time it looks like they're working on barrel number 2. Okay, great, thank you. Doctora número 2 tiene como una sustancia de avena de trigo y que al meter o sea, hay partículas sólidas ahí. This is part of life. This is what we have to deal with. It's like they're collecting core samples now. Well, it is a sobering experience coming down here. And they're moving on to the 4th barrel now.
Mexican mafia turn their victims into stew, literally inside the FBI. If you think it couldn't get worse, Cartels came up with something called el Guiso, or the stew. Victims are thrown alive into barrels filled with boiling acid, gasoline, or chemicals, then either burned or left to dissolve slowly. One of the most infamous butchers was Santiago Meza Lopez, known as El Pozolero, or the stew maker. This man didn't just kill, he made bodies disappear. For just $600 a week, Lopez spent years dissolving hundreds of people at his ranch near Tijuana. Some victims took 8 hours or more to fully break down, leaving behind only bits like teeth, fingernails, and tiny bone fragments. These remains were either buried, burned, or dumped in wastelands like trash. When he was arrested, authorities found signs of over 300 dissolved bodies, and later linked him to about 14,000 human remains scattered across the area. Even more chilling? After his 10-year sentence ended, outrage forced authorities to hit him with an extra 30 years behind bars in 2024. But for many families, justice feels impossible. The people they loved were turned into nothingness, never to be found again. Which one will haunt you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and for more such amazing videos, do subscribe to our channel.